know branding is a big part of what you do. So what's kind of explain the difference between having a strong brand versus not having a brand? Because I think a lot of like not only creators, but also a lot of companies kind of don't really understand the concept of branding.
Yeah. Well, Martin Neumeyer kind of nailed it when he says that a brand is a person's gut feeling when it comes to a product, service, or organization. Meaning, if you have an emotional feeling, an emotional experience or emotional opinion about a product, service, or company, that makes it become a brand. And a lot of people think that as long as you have a logo, you have a brand. It's not true. A logo is just a logo. It's nothing else. And the same when it comes to having a beautiful website or having a good product that, of course, is the best product that is out there. Still, it's just a product. It's nothing more. The moment that people have a personal experience with that product or service, that's when it becomes a brand. And the challenge, which is something that I do address in the book that I just wrote, is the fact that people forget to take the time to figure out who are we? Why do we exist? What is our purpose? What do we provide of value to the consumers that we try to reach? And then what kind of problems do we solve? What is the pain point? Like, are we a painkiller or are we something that inspires? You're just figuring out those single tiny details, which are so important, is the thing that people skip the most. And what they do, they jump straight into methods. It's like, I built a website, I have a product, I want to do Facebook advertising, I'm going to do TikTok, I'm going to do Instagram, I'm just going to promote out of it. Pardon my French.
That's all good.
Beep. And then in a way they forget about what's the essence of who we are. And I think that's what boils it down. Like what is a brand is like, it is the essence of who you are and what kind of impact, what kind of dent in the universe you want to make with the product and service that you provide.
So for someone who's maybe just started a company or they've just started producing content for themselves and they want to really position themselves to have a strong brand from day one, what are a few tips for someone getting started and, creating a strong brand, or at least laying a good foundation for building a strong brand?
Right. I tend to go into the 5 C's, and the 5 C's is about like the company. What is the company? What is the purpose, the mission, what's the North Star of the company? And then you go into the category. What kind of category are we operating in? Who is within the category? Then the consumer or the customer. Who's the target group? What are they doing? What's their habits? What's their media consumption, etc., etc. Then go into context, like how does the society around us look like? Like, are there social things we need to be aware of, economic, technology things that we need to be aware of that will affect the company? And then the final thing is channels. So when we know who the consumer is, then we also should know what kind of channels we should operate in. And it's not just about operating the channels that the consumer is in, but also the channels that we feel more comfortable operating in. Because again, if we feel hopelessly foolish or we find it awkward to operate on Twitter or Instagram or do TikTok videos because, it's like, it's a little bit cringing, don't do it. Then find another way to get that message out. But at least like focus on those 5 C's, super important, because then you map out what the essence of the company is. That's how you start the brand. But then you also have and that's the thing that I kind of like think that is the most important thing when it comes to marketing. Know where you are, because that's the only way you're going to figure out where to go. Yeah.
You've probably seen so many mistakes made over the years. What are some of the biggest mistakes brands or people make to, I would say, not destroy their brand, but, take a few steps back?
Yeah.
What should people avoid?
I think the biggest red flag for me is, and I see this across the board everywhere, is that so many companies and brands and just people in general are just focused about how important it is for them to say something. And they forget to focus about, it's not about you, it's about the audience. It's about the consumer that you're trying to reach. Like, what are their pain points? What do they care about? Why should they listen to you? And like, who are you? Why should they care about what you have to say? Like, figuring out those kind of simple things is super important. But that's where most people fail today, because they are so focused on all the unique things that they have to sell and promote and talk about, that they actually just get lost. Like, they can't see the forest for the trees because they're just so hung up in their own silver shining bullet in a way.
Sorry, continue.
No. So basically, I would say that's the biggest issue, that they focus too much about their own story instead of like figuring out like what's important. And then secondly, trying to smear, like, how do you, like, there's a Norwegian expression saying that you're spreading yourself too thin. And basically it's like you try to tackle everything in the shortest amount of time. Meaning you try to, like, instead of focusing on one channel where, like, this is where I'm going to build my tribe. This is where I'm going to, in my book, I'm talking about the fact that, like, storytelling has been part of human history. Like, we had the bonfire, we lit the bonfire, and then people started gathering around the bonfire to hear stories. And if you do that consistently, then more and more people will come. And if the stories are good, more and more people will come, because it's like, this is interesting, this is valuable to me, this provides something. And that's also something that I see many do as a mistake. They just jump on the latest trend because they think that that's what's going to work, but it's never going to work.
What is kind of important to arm your customers or even ambassadors with the right materials or the right opportunities to help them talk about your brand? Because there's ambassador programs, there's referral programs, there's all this other stuff. But how do you see successful brands using ambassadors and influencers successfully?
I think the ones that are most successful are the ones that control the narrative. Because again, branding is about, like, how do you apply the message that you have holistically through all channels. And if you have ambassadors, and an ambassador can be, again, your employees is the number one ambassador that you have, because they will come home and talk to their families about how work was. And if they are complaining when they come home, it's a negative ambassador. If they come back home and say, like, it was an amazing day at work today, I was doing this and this and this, and I had, we're doing some amazing stuff for our customers or for our clients, they're a good ambassador. But I think, controlling the narrative, which means that, have a simple brand message and not overcomplicate it. And like, I took my own medicine, because I was kind of like, whenever people ask me, what kind of services do you provide? What do you do, Arnt? What do you do for a living? Like, how can you help us? And I was like, well, I simplify the complexity of marketing, and I can help you with branding. I can help you with this. And then suddenly it was like a plethora of things that I was saying. But then I just started like I can't do that, because it's like every time is a different narrative. So then I boiled it down to, like, well, I'm using my knowledge, my passion, and my curiosity to make a positive impact. That's it. And that can be done through branding, marketing, strategy, but just in a way honing in on, like, that simple message, like, what is the brand about, and what are we trying to do, and how are we trying to change? And then apply that story to as many people as possible, because if it is simple enough, then people will remember it. And when they remember it, they can tell it to others.
First off, let's talk about your book and your podcast a little bit. Straight away caught my eye. You've interviewed Gary Vee. I'm sure that's not an easy feat. How do you, what sort of content do you like to talk about on your podcast? And then, what were your main takeaways with Gary Vee? I've just got to, looking at it from your perspective, how did that interview kind of impact what you do and your sort of strategy in terms of the service you offer to, all these big brands or small brands?
Yeah, well, the story with Gary is kind of, I am the kind of person that if I decide that I want to do something, I just have to do it. And my rendezvous with Gary started in 2008. when he was speaking at a Future of Web Apps conference in London. And he had this amazing presentation on stage, no slides, nothing. He was just walking around the stage talking about everything and, using his curse words as usual. And I was just sitting on the front line. And when he was done, I just went straight up to him and I said, like, hey, I'm trying to I want to record a video podcast with you. Can I steal you for 5 minutes? And he was like, yeah, sure. And then he just answered a bunch of other questions from other people. And then he went with me and we actually sat and did a video podcast for another podcast that I did back in the days. But that's how it started. And then since then, me and him has been having conversations and we've been going out for drinks together and talking together. And then I just said to him, like, look, I'm starting a podcast. I would love for you to come and give your perspectives when it comes to marketing and, your insights and your thoughts. And that's how it started. So yeah, he is a very interesting personality. And my take when it comes to asking questions on the podcast was I kind of like had the same script for everyone. It's like, what do you see is the future? What are the challenges? What are the problems? But then diving also into the more personal stuff. For example, I wanted to know why he was so hung up on the idea of buying the jets and what's going to happen once he did it. Because again, it's a very purpose-driven mission. Like you have this idea from when you are 8 years old, I'm going to buy the jets. And then it's like, okay, so when you achieve it, then what? And it was kind of insightful to hear his answer. It was a fun podcast. But yeah, that was basically the idea. I've been inviting a lot of CMOs to come on the podcast because I think CMOs have very different takes on marketing. They have very different takes on how to do marketing based on which company they work for. So when I talked to the head of design at Philips, he had his way of thinking about branding and marketing that is completely different than the person that was representing LinkedIn and how they think branding and strategy and marketing. So, all these kind of perspectives is valuable, not only to me, but also, of course, to the audience as well.